Welcome to Igniting Inspired Insight, a space, as you know, for real conversations with incredible humans. And in these three questions, we really get to find inspiring inquiry. One question you all know, one question they won't expect, and one they get to ask me, and maybe even, as you know, flow within themselves. So, this is a space for truth, trust, and the kind of insight that comes from simply being human. So, let's begin. And today, first time ever, I get a repeat. So, we get to bring Carrie back, which I love. And this is another thing that came through for me because I was like, actually, these beautiful, short, powerful, potent conversations mean that we can connect again and we get to flow. So Carrie was episode number 3, and now we're dialing in, which is so, like, it's nearly 6 months later, which is so special. And this is what I love. And so this is a day of firsts, actually, because I just recorded someone who I'd never met before, which was a first. And then a first in terms of you are our first guest to come on back, which means you didn't hate it. But I'm really honored and excited to invite Carrie Varela back here with us. And some of you may know that Carrie is my Reiki teacher and a beautiful friend and guide. And we have a lot of similarities in our work and then some divinely different pieces too, which is really beautiful. And so thank you so much for coming on back.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me back. I feel so honored to be your first repeat guest. I didn't realize that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
But I am always down to share space with you, my friends. You just light me up always. And I know that. I'm so inspired by this podcast and from what I've been witnessing from the outside, just some amazing conversations, and it's really lovely to see the people who've been gathering around you and sharing their light and their stories with you
Mm.
and how you've been able to facilitate these conversations is really beautiful too. So inspired, eternally inspired by you, my friend.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're here for, right? Let's inspire each other.
Mm.
And that is a divine reflection because, you've been such a light in my life. So let's do that for others through our conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here for you today, we get to ask the same first question and knowing that the answer will be different because it is. And also because this first question of like, what's one moment, belief, or experience that changes the way you see the world? So many people reflect back, wow, there's so many. So that's why we can ask that question and have a different answer, as well as it depends on where we're at in our life and just what truth is coming through us. So I get to reflect that to you now and ask, what is, for today, one moment, belief, or experience that changed the way you see the world?
Oh, um, yeah, it's such an interesting question. And I was looking back at what I talked about in my first conversation with you, and the first thing that I shared then was like not making things so hard, and learning how to be gentle with myself. So there's still that. It was good to touch base with that and
Mm-hmm.
realize I think as I discussed in our conversation how easy it is to kind of put that under the rug and just say no, like I'm gonna make it hard on myself, or sit, be with the hard things and make it harder.
Mm.
Um, but to answer that question authentically today, I am learning how to work through and be okay with grief. And that's kind of a new life experience for me. And I feel very grateful that that's the truth because for most of my life, my most significant and important people have stuck around and been with me and supported me in different ways. And I have, in the last 2 years or so, really been deeply learning Vedic astrology, which has been a really exciting new tool that I've been implementing into my life. And, Reiki is about spiritual energy. Reiki is about being in the rhythm and the consciousness of the universe and living our life from that place. So there's constant new jewels and new awareness that kind of filters in to my consciousness through my Reiki practice. But the gift of learning Vedic astrology is to really be in rhythm with the harm with the universe and being
Mm.
more in touch with the universal fluctuations, which has been life giving and life changing for me. Learning Vedic astrology catapulted me into a spiritual awakening, which I've been through one before, and I remember how intense it was. And then I kind of, went through it all and kind of came into this whole new state of being in my life and just how I felt about myself and the world. And it was really the start of me teaching yoga and offering Reiki on my professional path. Um, but I had this kind of notion that this spiritual awakening would be like, oh, cool, I did that.
Mhm. Mhm.
That thing back there, and of course there's like other like new layers and new experiences and growth, but wasn't anticipating, but I've kind of intuitively been feeling that there is this a deeper spiritual awakening that was happening for me, and going fully like deep dive into the process, like going into the shadow of it and kind of descending into the dark night, and on this journey of feeling that coming, then really being in the process of it. And Vedic astrology kind of came to me like right as I was going into that deeper dark night, and it's
Mhm.
been with me through this spiritual awakening. So one of my Vedic astrology teachers, she really teaches this really unique perspective, which I just so appreciate. And one aspect of it is that she continuously invites in grief circles into the process. And really has this reflection back to us about how our resistance and our apprehension and our unwillingness to confront the challenges in our life and actually really make positive change often comes from our resistance to feeling grief and going through grief, and the change that it creates in our life. Well, so I've been learning about grief, through this process and really opening myself more fully to grief, because for a lot of my spiritual journey, it's been more of the love, light, rainbow kind of the side of things. And that's like authentically my experience of just this incredible joy and happiness and sense of fulfillment that I found in this life. And I'm always grateful for that. But life is also change, and things have been really changing in my life. So I guess back to my own grief, my mother 5 years ago was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and that's been an interesting journey too, to just see her life, her mobility, her cognition starting to change and decline. And there was tremendous relief when I learned that she had Parkinson's, because Parkinson's is no longer a terminal illness, which I didn't know that at the time. You can live a very long life with Parkinson's. And so there was this like, oh my gosh, this immediate kind of fear of learning about this debilitating illness that my mother has. And then this almost like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. Like, I'll just squash that feeling down because she's going to be okay. She's going to go through the things. But it's been 5 years of witnessing her suffering, and it's been hard. It's just hard to sit with people you love and see them suffering and just know that they're in pain and feeling this sense of helplessness. And So that was kind of me dipping my toes into it, and I kind of step in and out of it. But because I really believe we're all connected, I know that in some ways I'm also holding my mother and holding her in her process. And I know that I do that sometimes more subconsciously than I'm aware of, but that it's just this like kind of rhythm or this little ribbon of grief that like sits with me, and comes up here and now. And then I also just get this joy of when I get to talk with her, and she's just my mother, and I have this sense of like joy because I can still talk with her, and we still have this connection, and I get to, yeah, just be with her in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then in my Vedic astrology studies, last year, I knew that I was entering, like, there was this new planetary alignment that was happening for me in my chart. And there's a very challenging planet in my eighth house. And this planet is known for its causing sudden and traumatic loss. And so there's this thing about, like, sometimes we want our intuition to tell us things. Like, we want to use our intuition, right? We want to be in touch with our intuition. But the thing is about our intuition, it also tells us not only when the good things are going to happen and how to align ourselves, but sometimes it also gives us clues that there are more challenging
Mm-hmm.
seasons ahead. And so in some ways it's a gift that I know, and then in some ways it's not a gift because I know and I'm working with it, and it's not. There's a sense of apprehension, I think, I've been sitting with, and not to make things happen when they're not meant to happen, but this year has brought at least a few, sudden and traumatic losses. Like the main one was my dog dying a month ago. And yeah, it was something that I was prepared to have happen. He was 13 and a half years old. And
Mm.
I just had this assumption that, he would get sick and I would know, and we could have our last walk together and, eat some pizza together and like, have these moments to say goodbye. And I knew it would be hard. But that's not how he died. And he died in a
Mm-hmm.
really traumatic way all of a sudden. And I didn't have those moments that I had hoped to have. And so
Mm-hmm.
that it brought a new layer also of the grief process of like this preciousness of these people in our life, and
Yep.
these animals in our life that teach us so much. And so my dog, I got him at the time when I really wanted to manifest a family, and I was like, I'm gonna have an animal family. I'm gonna start there, be an animal parent. And if you've had a dog, I know you've had a dog. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're they're like three-quarters of a child. They're a lot of work. They keep me grounded. I'm connected to my home, like always. Coming back, feeding him, walking
Mm-hmm.
him. He's such a big part of my life, and so yeah, losing him. Uh, it was a moment to reflect, like, oh, these last years of being with him, but really this whole 13-year cycle, and how he really taught me how to be a parent. And if I hadn't had him, um, I don't think I would have been as equipped as I could have been for my children when they came along. And yeah, so and now, and in his passing, just teaching me also like that sacred bliss that we
Mm-hmm.
learn so much about. And
Savage
I work
bliss,
together
yes.
with blissology. Is like, or savage bliss, right? Is this like deep love we have for our loved ones and the joy of being with them. But the wisdom of grief teaches us that everything we love will lose.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we work with like having our heart open to the things we love and enjoying the moment, but also knowing that change and death is part of our reality too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so I thought I'd just share some of those reflections to meet with you today because right
Mm,
now those ribbons of grief have become a little river for me, and I'm just in that moment.
yeah.
And I know it's a path that you have walked as well, and I'm sure you have so much wisdom that you've learned
Mm.
from your grief journey. So
Thank you for
that's
sharing.
that's what I felt like to share today.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that, it's so powerful to share. It's also so human. It is something that we all walk at some time and space within this life. And there's two things. Yes, the savage bliss, like, and it's interesting because this was from our both of our teacher Ian Finn, and he talked about savage bliss, and he explained it to quite a depth, but never really understood it to the degree until I experienced it myself. And then really knowing that that's what it was, and really feeling into it, but understanding that. And I've literally just spoke about this on previous podcasts, so this flows incredibly. But that we don't really truly know love until we've experienced grief. We don't really truly understand the depths and the capacity of the love we have in our life until we've experienced the loss. And yes, we have tastes and types and pieces of love, but the true depth of it, I believe, is that savage bliss, which is that basically, in a simple way to explain it, if it really hurts, that's a divine reflection of how much love there is and was. If it doesn't hurt, it didn't matter, And so, to me, it's like when I feel the grief, I also feel gratitude because it's reminding me of the love. It's reminding me of the gift of that interaction, the gift of that relationship, the gift of that receiving, and the reciprocity in that flow of love. And it's such a powerful thing to sit with. And it's such a gift. It doesn't feel that way in the moment, but when we see and feel the wholeness of it, that's where we can get to. And again, not always, and it's not like an end product. It's a flow. It's an in and out and ebb and flow. But it is, grief is a divine reflection of the love. And it's such a powerful place to sit within that. And I know that grief is not easy, but I also think that it's one of the biggest transformers for our lives. And I do think that, coming back to that question, that it changes the way we to view the world, and not just the external world. It changes the way we view our inner world. It changes the way we walk through our life, and the choices we make moving forward. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just as you were speaking there, what really came through for me is just, in our consumer driven culture where it's like so much is like, get that thing, um, the house, the car, the whatever, is like grief teaches us how important our relationships are and to value our people,
Mm-hmm.
more
Yeah.
deeply because they're irreplaceable. Like there's no price tag you can put on them. Um,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and back to your question of how grief changes us, I mean, so that start of that spiritual awakening for me was it's this divorce that I've been going through for the last year and a half or so. And that was, a huge grief process, of course, too. And the part that I think was so tender for me was just, when I had my daughter and we like it felt like this. She was my second child, and when I had her, I just had this sense of wholeness. Like, my family is complete. Like, I didn't want to have more children, but like there was this is us. Like, this is our crew and our family. And something I thought I could rely on, and I do rely on it, and it is the same. It's still our family. It's just changed. It's different.
Hmm.
But when we divorced, it was this emotional rupture. It was this relationship rupture that happened, and it's taken me a year to really feel like, oh, actually, I feel really whole and complete with where I am right now.
Mm.
And as much as grief changes us, we can also it's also our mind. So if I feel like I'm incomplete in my life, or somehow something is missing,
Hmm.
and I'm always feeling like a lack. But when I've accepted what is, and I can find that sense of wholeness and completion, with how my family looks right now.
Hmm.
But then when my dog died, it was like a whole nother level
Oh
of
yeah.
emotional rupture that just like, blew my little world apart. Sorry about that. I'll just repeat that if you're
It's
editing
all
it.
good.
Um, yeah, so that was just another emotional rupture that just, burst my world apart. And I've come to realize that this whole journey of like manifesting my family, and like so much of my intention of getting my animal, and why he was and how he walked with me in these years,
Hmm.
like that magic is over, or that magic has kind of gone through its own life cycle. And I
Yeah.
am like, with him passing, I realized that I'm on a totally new timeline. Like my life is changing, and I'm here now planting new seeds for what I want my life to look like now. And just because I know Jay and I were like the exact same, we're born in the same month, same year, so
Yes.
we're going through so many things. But also with this perimenopause that my
Oh yeah.
40s have brought also into my life, is there's these journeys of sacred transformation, that we all go through, and just in the normal life cycle. And I think so many women, we've suffered in silence with menopause, because there's this huge internal transformation that happens inside of us in that time of our life too. And anyone who's gone through it will just shake their head and just like look at you and be like, "Oh yeah, I know." But yeah, we don't know. Nobody prepares you for these things, and even if they did, I always knew my dog was going to die, but I wasn't prepared for how it felt, or and what I've been going through with it. So
I think that's true too. It's like even if we do have this level of acceptance with death or with losing an animal and all of that sort of thing, we know it's logical, but we can never anticipate the feeling. Like it just, and it's like that with other things in life too. We have, we can prepare mentally, but emotionally, that is a journey that, is we just need to be in the expression of and let it flow through us and be open to whatever that looks like. We can't know, can we?
we can't know.
I think that's such a beautiful thing. But again, like people will be listening and knowing that they've lost their dear pet and feeling that, like knowing exactly what you're describing, and I know the same. It's like you can't prepare yourself for that, and whew, it's a lot. It's a lot. That unconditional love of that buddy that you have that is always there, and you underestimate just how much they offer, I think, until they're not there. I mean, I knew, but then until they're not there, you're like, oh man. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Mm. Okay, here we go. So we're going to take a beautiful pivot, just acknowledging the power and sharing grief. And thank you so much. And yes, those who have been on the podcast, well, there's a lot of weave and many guests in sharing the experience and the learnings and in those um, the depth of love and who we lose or what. So we're going to take a big pivot into a question that I have for you, knowing what you're sharing and the wisdom in the Vedic astrology and what you've been learning. So my question for you is, how has Vedic astrology changed your connection or your understanding, your energetic work to money and pleasure?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. Well, first, as I'm always just so inspired to just educate people about, all of the modalities that I really hold in my toolkit. But Vedic astrology is just a very interesting form of astrology. So many cultures have a form of astrology, and there's probably some cultural exchange that has happened, to bring astrology to a lot of different cultures. But Vedic astrology is very ancient. It was referenced in the Vedas, which is thousands of years old, the kind of precursor text to a lot of the Hindu philosophy and belief system. So part of that is yoga as one limb of the Vedas, but astrology is also one limb of the Vedas. It's called the eye of the Vedas. And Jyotish is the Sanskrit word for Vedic astrology, and Jyotish means light to the soul. And so it shows us through the Vedic lens, they're very interested in many things. But one of the things that really is illuminated within Vedic astrology is our path and our purpose. The Sanskrit word for our purpose, our life purpose, is called dharma. And dharma means one's sacred duty. And it's kind of a little bit about, integrity, like how do we show up in life? How do we show up for our loved ones? How do we show up and do our work honestly? That's also a principle of Reiki. But there's all these little flavors of dharma. So dharma is also about the things that bring you the most evolution, fulfillment, and joy. And so dharma is one major theme of what you can see inside of a Vedic chart. Like when you're looking at somebody's Vedic chart, you can see dharma. But it actually illuminates three other really important things, which are your wealth. Can show you your path to finding more wealth. And dharma isn't separate from wealth either, like your life purpose. Dharma is the thing that brings you both spiritual and material well-being. It brings you spiritual and material, real life, real world riches and fulfillment in that way too. Then the other things that you can see through the Vedic chart, so you can see your dharma, life purpose, you can see your wealth, and you can also see the nature of your relationships. So how you relate to others, the kind of the planetary alignments or even misalignments around relationship can be illuminated in your chart. And then the final thread is moksha, or liberation. So what is the pathway that brings you the most healing and evolution? What liberates you from suffering? You can see that clearly within the Vedic chart. So, and I can't remember all the different threads. There's a lot of different, there's four things that inspire dharma or whatever, but one of them is pleasure. So it's not just about putting my head to the ground and work is how I find my life purpose. It's actually about willingness to lean towards pleasure and what brings you joy. So pleasure can be, of course, the sexual aspect of it, but it's also just the monetary aspect of it. It's this fulfillment piece of God, I live in this amazing, abundant planet, and my needs are actually being met. If we live all day in our scarcity mindset where we're I don't have enough, there's not enough. Hey, I have compassion for that because I'm in that mindset more days than I should be. But the truth is that we always have enough. That's just kind of the way the law of nature work. And as long as we're willing to show up and do our work, there's this incredible life safety net that happens. But so some part of pleasure is just to me is to let go and just trust.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, just trust that the money will show up when I need it, and that I don't have to worry about it. What I have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about is, putting my ducks in a row and setting myself up for success. um, there's another really interesting piece of in Vedic astrology around monetary abundance, and that's that it actually flows more through your ancestral lineage than you would think. And
Mm-hmm.
so we do a lot of ritual around, connecting to our ancestors and feeling our ancestors supporting us, and that is some aspect of who's behind the veil, right? Supporting us in our journey through life. There's this interesting connection to our ancestor and our ancestral lineages, which also I think can be the lineages of our practices too, our spiritual tools. So clearly, like Vedic astrology, there's a strong lineage there. Also
Mm-hmm.
within Reiki, there's a lineage. Yoga, also a lineage too. Um, but what I this has been really cool too. So fun to mention this. But through this process of learning Vedic astrology, I also got connected to a person named Benjamin Collins. His organization is called Puja.net. And what he has been like a Vedic astrologer for 40 years, and his kind of dharma or his contribution to the practice of Vedic astrology is that he's connected Western practitioners of Vedic astrology to Indian monks who are steeped in the Vedic tradition, right, of Vedic astrology. And so that has often come through family lineages, and different areas are really have a stronger Vedic connection than others. And if you're unfamiliar with Indian culture, it's often that a Vedic astrology would be consulted before you have a wedding or have a major life event, that you would want to put people's charts together to make sure that they're compatible. And so it's a huge part of their life. And there's an incredible accuracy of Vedic astrology that's really fascinating to explore. So, nevertheless, this man named Benjamin Collins, with his organization called Puja.net, he basically has found a way to, through a monthly subscription, connect people who are interested in Vedic astrology to these priests who are daily doing rituals
Mm-hmm.
for the stars and the planets, like helping us align more fully and harmonize more fully with the stars and the planets and the planetary cycles. So this is like a huge, ancient, thousands of years tradition in India. And so through his organization, I've enrolled, and so every day a priest prays a yaga series, which is a series of mantras, and I can switch whatever one I want. It could be on health, it can be on wellness, it can be on abundance, and so that's one of the main ones. And so every day I have these monks chanting, and it's not just for me; it's like for my whole family. They do this. It's incredible, and
Wow.
so I've been doing these chanting for abundance, and it has been super powerful, Jay. I have
Yeah, I
to tell
bet.
you, it's like it like opens up the hose, and it's like, shh. Um, and so you watch what you wish for. You
Yes,
might get it,
yes.
and you get it in kind of weird ways sometimes too. So
Yeah.
be mindful what you watch for. But yeah, I think pleasure on the other side of that question is pleasure is really interesting too, because it can be one of those really immense or just an interesting thing to lean into, especially if we're suffering, if we're depressed, if we're going through a cycle of grief. It's like, how willing am I to turn back towards my joy and find joy in my life? And as I'm sure you know, when we're grieving and suffering, like that's probably
Mm-hmm.
the last thing we want to do,
Mm,
but it's so important to do it.
I
To
agree.
find joy in the food we eat, in the sunshine, in being outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also the sexual pleasure piece for sure too, but um, is really stepping into, well, what brings me that sense of joy and pleasure in my life, and that in our often more religious ways of orienting around spirituality, we kind of like repress that pleasure component, at least in Western cultures, most Western cultures. But it's interesting to see how it's really expressed in Vedic astrology.
Mm. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I asked that question is because I really do see that. I think there's a resistance and a lack of belief around deserving pleasure and also what pleasure means. Like, yes, I am talking about intimacy and ecstasy and feeling that erotic pleasure, but also the pleasure in those things you mentioned. Enjoying your body, not just in intimacy, but enjoying your body in other ways, enjoying your food, enjoying your life, enjoy, and to me that is pleasure. It's also being open to receiving.
Mm.
And that I think is such a beautiful thing, but I also think it's our birthright, and I don't think that we're dialed into that as much enough, and that is something that I really want to make a change in, and I have in my own life, but in for all of us, is there is so much more pleasure and joy available to us, and actually reflecting back, it's like that's what grief and death has taught me, is like we have, whether we have more lives or not, which I believe, but I can't prove, but we have one body right now, and we were given this one lifetime, and to me, like, the ultimate responsibility and choice is to have a really fucking great one and to enjoy as much as we possibly can, because there is so much challenge and grief and tragedy and all of these things. But so it's up to us to choose pleasure and to find the joy as much as we can. It won't be there all of the time, but when we can, to create that and to lean into it and to be that for each other as well, that pleasure and joy. I do think there's a lot of resistance to that unconsciously. And so I really love everything that you shared, and I completely agree. And it's so powerful. It's also, I think that people maybe come into Vedic astrology with like, oh, this is going to teach me about my stars or about my personality or about, what decisions I make, or all of that sort of thing. But I was like, if you haven't experienced anything like that, it's powerful to know that, it does weave in your relationship with your relationships, or your relationship with money, or your connection to wealth, or like how your purpose and your passion relate into that. And it really does weave so many pieces for us to come into an understanding of within ourselves.
It's true. And one of the cool things about Vedic astrology is that, it's this mindset that suffering is optional,
Mm,
and they're not all suffering is, but a lot of suffering is optional. And so the things that often cause us the most suffering are exactly this, is not being clear about what my life purpose is, being stuck and confused about the quality of my relationships, being unclear about my own pathway to financial success and freedom, not knowing how I can heal myself. And these just, it's those four paths that
mm,
Vedic astrology really helps us illuminate.
yeah.
And I, I also don't know if I have more than this life, but I have the sense that like Vedic astrologers were like an alien civilization that came down and like incarnated thousands of years ago, and they had like this advanced technology, and somehow they transmitted it to us through Vedic astrology. But and I can't explain why it works, or
Mm,
why it's so accurate, but just to say that is powerful to be in alignment with the planets. And I know that that's been a big part of your coaching practice, right?
mm.
Is to stay in touch with the new moon, the full moon, even that as a simple practice. I mean,
Yeah,
it's quite profound.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And in the rhythms of nature, like the seasons that we're in, and all of that. I think it is so powerful to build a relationship with that, a connection to varying degrees, but to just be in touch and remember, that the seasons are changing, therefore so is our body, or so is our energy. And the same with the moons, like, and our own cycles as women, is just really tuning into that, again, to varying degrees, but even if it's just a little, it'll give you a lot of depth, and that's a beautiful thing. A depth of understanding of self, a depth of patience and presence with life, and the fluctuations and moods, and all of that sort of thing. It just really helps you understand yourself.
Oh, yes. And that's compassion in action too, right? When
Mm-hmm.
we understand ourselves, like we can suffer less because we know how we want to react to certain situations. We know
Mm-hmm.
what brings us more joy and fulfillment, and it helps us make more aligned choices. Um, so yeah, it's I think it's just such a beautiful gift that we were born into this life and we're just always so confused, fumbling
Mm-hmm.
through it, right? And then at least in my life, I found these tools. I
Yeah.
found yoga, and then I found Reiki, and
Mm-hmm.
now I found Vedic astrology, and it's not to say that it's made my life perfect by any means, but I have um, a deeper wisdom that I can
Mm-hmm.
use and in any given day, and that's really so meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
meaningful.
And I think the same for any of us that have been on this path of deeply learning about ourselves and about the planet and about the energies and all of that, is that we are a mix of modalities, and that is where the power comes from, and also what makes us uniquely different, and what we offer, and who we connect with us, or who feels, we're not for everyone, is what I'm trying to say. But
Mm-hmm.
and I do think a part of that is because of the mix of modalities, or the path that we've chosen, and how that person connects with that, and what they feel that they can receive.
Absolutely.
Yes. So here we are now in the section 3, reflecting light. So, my love, you have a question for me.
Mm. Well, I just want to reflect back. Had just a few opportunities to sit with you when you were going through a big life cycle of grief, and I know just how intense it was, and yet it's been really lovely to see you on the other side of it too, embracing your joy,
Mm-hmm.
finding a new path forward, and recreating your life after grief kind of it shatters us in many ways, right? Shatters what was, and then we create a new, more meaningful destiny. So I'd love to hear a little bit about where you are in your grief now, after losing Shelby, and um, maybe one thing that is still hard about that, just
Mm.
to speak it and to give voice to that, and then maybe one thing that is just truly very sweet, that
Mm-hmm.
grief process has brought you.
Mm. It's a beautiful question. Um, where am I at? So it's actually quite tender. Where I'm coming up to second anniversary at the end of the month, and it feels more tender this year than it did last year. However, I wouldn't call that hard or challenging in any way. It just feels more tender because of the journey of my life. No matter what I'm feeling, as long as I'm feeling, I'm content. Because there's been big chunks of my life where I feel disconnected and disassociating from feeling, from expression. And I feel like that is the true essence of being human, is being and feeling, and letting feelings move through you, as well as energy, like energy moving through us. And so, that's been the deepest learning for me through this process, is really just wanting to feel and be in the feelings, and honor that is a reflection of not only being human, but being present to this life that I've been given, and what the connections that I have created within me, And so I wouldn't say that and I know that this will be really rare, but I don't see any of it as challenging. I see it all as a gift. And I don't sit from a place of wishing it hadn't happened, because it did, and it is what it is. And I don't say that because it makes it feel better. I say that because I truly, deeply in my soul believe it. And I also am all for, I know we lose people in different ways, but, for me, there was not for me, for Shelley, there was deep suffering. And so I'm just in gratitude and peace that suffering is no longer, and that I can feel the unconditional love that she is now in. So why would I want any different? That doesn't mean that there's times where I don't miss her, but I also often don't, because I feel her. I really do. I feel her connected to me in a way that she can be with so many people at once. And how beautiful is that? And to have her in my healing team and to have her work with me on people is just next level. And so that, I guess that's the sweetness of it, is just feeling her more and more, and even in her humor, because she's really funny. She's very sassy. So there's some funny things that will go down. She's like changing songs on the stereo and just like, yeah, she's sending messages all the time. And I love that. And I wouldn't change that for anything. So I know that my feeling about death and about her passing will be really different to a lot of people, but I don't believe in wishing things were different. I don't believe in um blame or being in that energy of how could that happen, or that's so horrible. It is what it is, and it happened the way it happened, and I'm really truly at peace with that. Yeah. So thank you for asking. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I don't have moments where I'm in tears and I'm upset, but I honestly, even in those moments, I'm grateful for feeling, because of that savage bliss, because I know that that pain is a direct reflection of how much love there was. And to me, that's a gift.
Such a gift.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm there yet, but I think that that's so beautiful that you and the people I know who really walk closely with grief is how they often communicate how it's such a gift too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm.
I'm learning and walking with that now too. So
Yeah, it takes time.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're coming to an end now for this time. So I want to ask you, Carrie, to share with people who are listening how they can connect with you, and maybe, I don't know if you're sharing work in Vedic astrology, but that feels like a strong theme for today's podcast. But you can also share whatever way is lighting you up right now that people can receive from you.
Well, thank you again for letting me be the first
Mm,
person to be back out the second time on your amazing podcast.
pleasure.
Do the best in this endeavor in all things. And thank you all for listening and to our conversation. I hoped it sparked some inspired inquiry for you. And yeah, so I have a Reiki and Vedic astrology package that I'm really inspired to share. It's called Connecting to Your True Purpose, and it gives us an opportunity to connect to your purpose on this energetic level through the practice of Reiki, which is really one of the aims of Reiki, is helping us find our life purpose. And then also touching in with your Vedic astrology chart. So it includes two full readings in Vedic astrology, So it gives you an opportunity not only just get that first initial experience of having your Vedic chart read, but then also to come back with it again and kind of go deeper into the layers because it's so deep. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's no possible way in any lifetime you could understand all of there is to offer within Vedic astrology. It's so much,
Mm-hmm.
but so yeah, so you're welcome to find me on my website. There is on my homepage a direct link to connecting to your true purpose. I do, you know, less often, but offer individual Vedic astrology readings as well. And there's an opportunity to join my email list. So if you want to join my email list, I'll leave a link for you below as well.
Mm.
And that's also a great way to stay connected.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you. I love that idea of having more than one session because I know that I've received sessions like that, whether it be astrology, Vedic astrology, human design, and if you get it all in one, it's just like it's so overwhelming. But also, it means because it's overwhelming, there's pieces that drop. So I love the idea of being able to check back in and receive another layer, but also sort of really clarify what was received first time. So that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think that's the my preferred format, but I'm glad that that's your experience too, because it comes a lot at you, and there's only so much you can digest in one
Hmm.
session. Um, and now my chart is it is a map of my soul, so I'm always checking back into it, and even I can look at my
Hmm.
chart and I know it well, but there's always
Hmm.
new revelations that come from it. So that's been
Yes.
really cool too.
Yay. For those who are listening, if it's piqued your interest, I highly recommend working with Carrie, as you know, because she's been in my life for a long time. But the way you offer, as they will have heard in this podcast, it's such a beautiful way of parting, sharing the knowledge and giving a depth of understanding that it feels really grounded and connected. You're also very gentle in the way you work with people, and I love that. No surprise.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I'm receiving that. And I also want you to know that anybody listening, you should also work with Jae because she is amazing and um,
What we're
truly
here for,
somebody
right, my love?
who's living their purpose. So, yeah.
Mm. Yay. To everyone that's been listening today, thank you so much. It's important for you to understand that we don't need to be famous or in a place of power in order to hold deep wisdom. Here on Igniting Inspired Insight, we get to meet with incredible humans and see what wisdom's coming through them. And together we explore these just such powerful points of life. So thank you so much for being here with us. If you feel like you can share this with people who may also want to listen, we would be so incredibly grateful. And maybe you'll also connect with Carrie. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you, Jae.